Hey guys, welcome back. This is Arc Flash. Welcome to part 3 of the Mega Man X retrospective and why we love him so much. If for some reason this is the first video you guys are watching, don't forget to check out the first 2 episodes in the series and also look at the original Mega Man retrospective that I did before watching this one. It'll give you a good idea of everything we've talked about and done up to this point. And I'll make sure to put a couple title cards up there for you guys and put links in the description below so you can watch those before you check out this one. So here we're going to start talking about Mega Man X7, 8 Command Mission. And just for the storyline's sake, we're going to touch on the Mega Man 0 and ZX series as well. And don't forget to subscribe if you guys like what you're seeing here. Okay, enough delaying things. We're really going to do this, aren't we? Okay, let's look at Mega Man X7. Oh my god.
Mega Man X7.
Mega Man X7 releasing in October of 2003 for the PlayStation 2, the first Mega Man X game for the PlayStation 2. So similar to the PlayStation 1, when we jumped to the PlayStation 2, everybody was expecting a pretty good increase in graphical fidelity, sound quality, all the things that you would want from a new generation release. And the game does open with some cool 3D animated cutscenes. The trailer when you start the game looks cool, looks exciting, gets you ready to play. So the story in this one, after the Eurasia incident from Mega Man X5 and the Zero Nightmare incident from Mega Man X6, the Earth's surface was completely devastated, obliterated, and the Reploids have been working ever since that time to clean up the world and make it habitable for humans to live in it once again. The Maverick Hunters, being significantly weakened due to the retirement of Mega Man X, moved to more of a support role and try to achieve peace in that way. However, due to the rising crime rates from the Mavericks, a group of vigilantes came to the surface known as Red Alert, led by Commander Red. Commander Red and Red Alert initially only fought against Mavericks, but then one day the group began to act strangely, almost as if they were Mavericks themselves. Axel, a new playable character in the game, was once part of Red Alert, and he decides to leave once he sees this unusual behavior. So the game begins with Axel being chased down by a giant mechanoloid sent in by Commander Red. The mechanoloid tries to get Axel back, but with the help of Zero, the mechanoloid is stopped. Red then contacts him and issues a challenge. Red decides to release 8 Mavericks around the planet, and whoever can beat more between the Maverick Hunters and Red Alert will claim Axel as the prize. And that's where the game begins. Now, before we get into the actual game, which is a whole different issue all by itself, once again, the voice acting, it's horrible. It makes X4's voice acting look godly by comparison.
You've got to be kidding! Axel has nothing to do with us! We won't fight the likes of you for his sake!
Okay, so while X doesn't sound like a girl anymore, he sounds like an absolute wimp. He's such a pacifist, he never wants to fight. It's just aggravating because I understand that X wants peace, but he does it at the expense of his friends.
X, you said I need to pay my dues, right? So make me a Maverick Hunter. Me and Zero make a great team, and together we could take care of Red Alert.
Well, golly gee, mister, make me a Maverick Hunter. Oh my gosh, that'd be so cool. So once again, like Mega Man X's voice actor in X4, Axel has child syndrome, even though he's supposed to be at least a teenager, I would assume. And then you have Zero, who has to have the lowest voice possible. Like they were trying to make him sound like Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z. Because he's a badass anti-hero with long hair and a sword.
Run-of-the-mill criminals, they won't listen to reason. And even if Axel did go back, which he won't, would they stop their misdeeds? I don't think so.
Zero, you're my hero. Hey, I knew you'd understand. I always thought you and X were so cool. I want to fight. I want to be a Maverick Hunter.
Oh man. You'd think by this time they would have had the budget to hire more professional voice actors. We've had multiple games now in the series that have not been up to par as far as that goes, so, well, let's get into some gameplay, although it's not going to get much better from here, just to forewarn you. So first of all, you remember how the Robot Master intros always used to be cool and they would look threatening? Now it's just a generic stiff image staring you in the face, and not even a high quality one at that, so we're not getting off to a great start. Now a lot of you guys out there may be thinking, hey man, this is the first Mega Man X game on the PlayStation 2, go easy on it, but I don't think it really deserves that, because if you look at Mega Man X4, that was a really great initial release in my opinion on the PlayStation 1, and you look at all the other games that were released in 2003. You had the likes of Silent Hill 3, Zone of the Enders 2, Xenosaga 1, Ape Escape 2, Beyond Good and Evil, Grand Theft Auto 3, you know how much of a juggernaut that was. And even Beautiful Joe, which, even though they were made by different development teams, still under the Capcom brand, and that was an amazing game. And I know what some of you guys might be thinking, look, we're comparing apples and oranges here, but really, you look at the quality of these games and the quality of Mega Man X7, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say is, developers were easily capable of releasing high quality games, high quality titles at this time, even Capcom. So to get a title like Mega Man X7 in 2003, I think was not fair to gamers. I felt like that title was extremely rushed. They were trying to get something on the PlayStation 2. The quality control wasn't there. There should have been more testing. The game should have really been taken back to square one, being released at this level of quality. Now I do have to give them credit that they were trying something different. They were trying to go in the 3D space, but there had to have been somebody out there that realized, hey, this game is just not up to par. The quality's declined a little bit since X5 and into this game. Let's just go back to the drawing board, let's try something else, but obviously they decided to release it at its current form, so that's what we have to look at. So right now you're looking at Zero. You can see that his sword strikes are much inferior to anything he'd had in the past. His sword swings are much slower. You can't really tell whether he's going to hit the target or not. He was always a really fast character, like I said before, like a fighting game character, so to see him play this slow and this sluggish was really jarring, I feel like, to a lot of people, including myself. He does have some similar moves that he did in the past, but as I said, the transition from 2D to 3D was just so jarring and sluggish that it still just doesn't feel right compared to his older 2D versions of himself. As you can see here during the battle with one of the bosses, Splash Warfly, he has one of his uppercut type moves, but it just doesn't look appealing. It doesn't really work that well. Can't get it to work consistently necessarily. So I didn't find Zero nearly as fun to play as I did in the past Mega Man X games at all. One thing that he does get that's kind of different is something called a D-glaive, which is kind of like a pole arm, and something else called a V-hanger, which is like a dual dagger type weapon. And it adds a little more variety to the gameplay, but again, the weapons are so sluggish, just like a Z-Saber, that it really doesn't add a lot of fun factor to the gameplay, even if it does add more variety. Getting into the new character, Axel, he does not fare much better. The biggest problem I have with Axel, and X we'll get to in a bit, is that everything in this game is auto-targeting, as you see here. It takes all the fun out of playing as these characters with guns, that they just auto-target everything in their path, and it takes away a lot of the challenge because you don't really even have to try to aim at anything, and it's a really confusing design decision. I don't really understand why they did it, if it was just to try to make it easier on the player somehow because of the transition from 2D to kind of this 2D, 3D hybrid that they were going for. The big gimmick with Axel being a prototype new generation Reploid is his copy ability, and to be honest, it is pretty poorly implemented. The copy weapon that he uses is really weak, and you have no idea how close the enemy is to dying before you can use the weapon. And it's such a situational weapon too. There's very few circumstances where you actually need to use it unless the game forces you to. And a lot of times the enemy that you're using the copy ability on is far weaker than anything Axel would be able to do on his own, so there's no real reason to use it in most cases. The other thing Axel can do is hover, which is something that Mega Man X was able to do in some of his older games with certain versions of the dash boots. Here they gave it to Axel, and it is something that I do like, having the ability to hover. I'm glad that they gave it to some character in the game, but it just makes Axel feel like a weaker version of X. As you're playing Axel, you kind of just wish that you were playing as Mega Man X. And that leads me to one of the other big problems with this game. And that is, as you're seeing here, I'm going along, you're seeing hostages that I'm going past, some of which I'm able to rescue. The hostages serve a more important function in Mega Man X7 in that they'll give you items and power-up chips that you can use to make your character stronger. And that's all well and good, it gives you more stuff to find in the game, which is fine. But the issue is that in order to play as Mega Man X, he's actually locked at the beginning of the game because he's supposedly retired. So in order to unlock him, you have to rescue 64 hostages.
Zero, do you read me? I'm going too. Take me with you.
X?
Okay, do as you please.
Whoa, jeez, Zero, calm down. Getting out of control. Now, the main issue with that is that throughout the entire game there's only 128 hostages, injured Reploids, whatever you want to call them, so each stage has about 16 of them, making a total of 128. So you have to get half of them. So that means it is impossible to get X until you're at minimum halfway through the game. Obviously, when you first start, you're probably not going to get every single Reploid on each stage, especially if they die. Once they die, they're gone for good. So I was actually through, I probably only had about 2 or 3 Robot Masters left, and then I finally got X. So you're at least 3/4 of the way through the game before you get the main character that the game is based on. Not a good decision for them to do that at all, in my opinion. Now, you do also unlock him by defeating all 8 Robot Masters, but that's even more pointless. It's either play halfway to 3/4 of the way through the game or all the way through to unlock X. Which leads me to another issue in that by the time you actually unlock Mega Man X, you've already powered up your other characters by getting a lot of these injured Reploid hostages, so that by the time you get Mega Man X, he's so weak, and you have to spend a lot of time going back through the levels, getting his armors, and trying to power him up just so he's even close to the level that Zero and Axel are at by that time. And not only that, X's armor, the glide armor in this game, is easily one of the worst that he's had in the whole series. The only real notable ability X gets through the glide armor is a really slow-moving gliding move that he can use when he's trying to cross gaps and whatnot. It's much weaker and less appealing than anything he's gotten in the past. Well, they at least do give him a Giga Crush or Crash type move, screen clearing move that he can use on enemies. And just a side note, I thought it was funny how when you get the head part, that even Dr. Light comments that it's pretty weak, which is really strange to me. It's like even the guy that gives you the ability is telling you that it's not worth a damn. All it really does is draw in items, so again, much weaker than anything he's had in the past as far as his armor abilities. Makes him pretty boring to play. But I would have to say, without a doubt, the absolute biggest flaw in this game has to be the level designs. Oh, the level designs. Snipe Anteater stage is a great example of this. You're just running around, you have absolutely no idea where you're going. You jump in some areas and it turns the level upside down and you have to try to navigate everything with things being upside down. This is a prime example of just a poorly implemented, poorly designed level that they were trying to integrate these 3D elements into, and it just didn't end up working out for them at all. I can't tell you the amount of time I spent running around like a jackass in this level trying to find all the injured Reploids, trying to figure out where I was going, what I was doing. I hadn't played this game in a long time, so I didn't remember where anything was at, and it just brought me back to when you would be a first-time player in this game and how much you would struggle just even trying to figure out where you're going half the time, let alone trying to actually accomplish anything. And then you get to the robot master of the stage, and he's just horribly designed, boring, slow, sluggish. The weapons that he's supposed to be weak against, he barely even reacts to. It doesn't do anything to him like in the older Mega Man games where they actually showed they were weak to the weapon. There's some bosses that do, but it barely does any damage to him, and it's just really confusing how they implement this and why a lot of the weapons that they're supposed to be weak against just don't really cause anything to happen. Soldier Stone Kong is another prime example of this. All you're doing is running around in a circle trying to get behind him. It's hard to even get over him half the time, and then he clings to a pillar in the center of the level. You can't hit him, you just have to stand there and wait and try to avoid his stone attack. So it's just everything about these bosses for the most part is very horribly designed. They try to implement too many of these three-dimensional aspects into it, and it just ends up ruining the gameplay experience. Now, it's not all bad. There are some fun aspects to the game, but it's mainly when it sticks to its 2D roots. Whenever it tries to go 3D is when it sort of goes off the rails, and even during the 2D sections, as you can see, you're just auto-targeting everything anyway, so it saps a lot of that fun that you would normally have in a Mega Man game typically. There are some other ridiculous bosses in this game, such as the likes of Tornado Tunyon and Ride Borsky, but easily the most ridiculous has got to be Flame Hyanard. God, that guy's annoying.
Burn to the ground! 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 Burn to the ground!
God, shut the hell up! Shut the hell up! Shut up! There are a lot of bad stages in this game, but easily the one that made me the most angry is this one where you're being chased by this giant mechanoloid, and it's like this whole level is designed just to piss you off. Oh, what? I jumped there! Damn these controls! Come on, come on, come on, come on! Oh, come on, man! This time I got you. This time, oh, son of a... This is hell. This is torture. This has got to be what hell's like, playing X7 over and over again. Oh god, I hate my life! Oh, come on, I'm almost to the end. No!
Did I ever tell you what the definition of insanity is? Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change. That is crazy. But the first time somebody told me that, I don't know, I thought they were bullshitting me, so boom, I shot him. The thing is, okay, he was right. And then I started seeing it everywhere I looked. Everywhere I looked, all these fucking pricks. Everywhere I looked, doing the exact same fucking thing. Over and over and over and over and over again. Thinking, this time, it's gonna be different.
And once you get past all that, you finally get to Commander Red. And his boss fight is absolutely horrendous. Basically, the entire thing is you jumping around on all these platforms, trying to get behind him. Every time you hit him, he throws an energy attack at you. And the biggest challenge of this fight is the fact that you can't adjust the camera. So you're always jumping to different platforms, trying to get the camera to properly adjust. He disappears and goes to different platforms during this, so the entire time you're hoping that you don't accidentally jump to a platform where he's at. You can't adjust the camera, you can't do anything. If you fall off a pillar, you instantly die. So it's just horrible. It's barely playable, and the only challenge in it is trying to figure out how to overcome the absolutely ridiculous design of this boss fight. And after getting through Commander Red, as the player found out during some cutscenes earlier in the game, and the heroes are finding out now, for the 7th time in a row, once again Sigma behind it all, he was controlling Commander Red and the army through the use of the virus, most likely. And once again, you have to fight Sigma and take him out. Hopefully, the heroes think once and for all. And after taking out Sigma in yet another frustrating three-dimensional boss battle, just use the sniper missile, trust me. Sigma, always having one final comeback in him, knocks Axel into a wall. It's then that Commander Red reappears to attack Mega Man X and Zero. And from there, well, I'll just let you guys check it out.
Give me your power. It's time for revenge.
Oh, with this power, I'll never
lose!
Oh yeah, it was Axel the whole time. Bet you he fooled you too, didn't he? I just can't get over the sound that Sigma makes as he flies out of that tower either. After the defeat of Sigma at the hands of Axel, the heroes, broken and weary, head back to the Maverick Hunter base. As an extra scene in the game, it's then that you're taken to a dream that Zero is having, which is probably the most interesting aspect of this game, and it's of Mega Man X appearing to label Zero as a Maverick and attack him. So I think they were trying to figure out a way to tie these newer games to some of the Mega Man Zero games, like this one tying into the first Mega Man Zero game in the series, considering that one came out the year before. So I do applaud them for trying to make kind of a sense of the story in that way. It's then that Zero wakes up and hopes that his dream doesn't become a reality, and that's when we get into Mega Man X8. And while not perfect, it's luckily much, much better than this game. Oh man, thank God we're done with this one. Time to get to X8, which came out in 2004.
The endless Reploid rebellions continue. Humans, however, have begun migrations to the moon, thanks to new technology. This plan is called the Jacob Project, and an orbital elevator was built as part of it. Highly advanced new generation Reploids have been brought to the moon's surface to work.
So as you heard there, humanity basically getting extremely tired of all the Maverick wars and fighting with Reploids down on the planet's surface, they decide to pretty much build an elevator all the way to the moon, an extremely impressive feat of technology. It's known as the Jacob Project, and a new generation of Reploids has been built specifically for that purpose, as well as to work on the moon's surface. However, normally it doesn't take long for things to go wrong in Mega Man X's world, no exceptions here. As an accident occurs close to the site of the Jacob Project, Mega Man X is sent to investigate, and what he finds is horrific.
Sigma?
To protect ourselves from damage during the accident, we had to copy a sturdy Sigma body. We new generation Reploids enjoy complete and total immunity to all viruses.
So basically this new character, Lumine, a new generation Reploid, they all have the same ability as Axel. Axel was just a prototype in Mega Man X7. Now there's tons of Reploids that have the copy ability, even going so far as to be able to copy Sigma due to their immunity to any viruses that Sigma carried. Shortly after the opening level, you find out that Vile is back looking like Boba Fett, and he has kidnapped Lumine. Well, you know who Vile used to work for, so I wonder who could be behind this. So, with another year under their belt with the PlayStation 2, was Capcom able to improve with Mega Man X8? Thankfully, Mega Man X8's gameplay fares way better than X7, mainly because they switched back to the traditional side-scrolling of past Mega Man games. And that was an absolutely fantastic decision in my opinion after the debacle that was X7, that they wanted to go back to their roots and just go back to the drawing board and figure out what worked about the past Mega Man X games and implement that into, at that time, the newer generation of consoles. And Mega Man X, as you're seeing here, playable right from the start of the game again, which I loved. I'm glad we were able to play as X during the opening stage again. And you actually play as X, Axel, and Zero all in the opening stage, which was really nice. It kind of reminded me of the highway stage from Mega Man X, how you went through and had a little tutorial just by fighting the enemies with Mega Man. You're fighting this giant mechanoid once again, similar to X7, but it's a lot more fun this time. Axel plays way better. We'll get into him in a little bit. Zero definitely plays better too. But first let's talk about Mega Man X and what they did with some of his abilities, kind of going back again to the older school armors, kind of similar to the other old Mega Man X games, but also adding some nice new elements that I think a lot of people appreciated for the time. So in this one they give you something called the neutral armor, which you acquire when you get the first power-up part for Mega Man X, and the neutral armor to me was one of the best ideas that they've had in this series in a long time. The ability for you to be able to attach any part to your armor that you want. You can mix and match parts. You do get bonuses if you have the same types of parts making up your entire armor. You have the Icarus armor and the Hermes armor. And I gotta say, this one has one of the best X-Buster upgrades of all the series too. I mean, look at this badass beam that he's shooting. Bam! And it even powers up your normal X-Buster shots. So this was an awesome addition. I liked having this. But as far as the neutral armor, there are 2 different armor sets total in the whole game. And the parts have different abilities. So some will increase your charge speed or give you a jumping attack that hurts enemies whenever you jump with the head parts. Some with the X-Buster parts you get a triple shot that goes 3 ways, or you get that powered up beam shot that I showed you. With the boots you get either a higher jump or better speed when you're dashing, as well as being invincible at the same time. And with the body parts you can become invincible to weak attacks that would normally damage you, or the other one I believe halves your overall damage. And then combining all the armors together you will get bonuses. So with the Icarus armor you get the Giga Crash attack, so I really like that. And activating the special ability on the Hermes armor you get a speed boost, which I didn't find quite as useful in a lot of situations. I personally preferred the Icarus armor myself. But being able to mix and match anything you want out of each of these armors was a really innovative idea, and I definitely applaud Capcom for that. And guess what's back, baby? X's ultimate armor. Oh hell yeah. Just a quick side note in this one, Zero also getting his black armor again as well. Doesn't do much for him this time around, it just increases his dashing distance a little bit. Axel also gets his white armor in this one, which is a new one for him. And this armor allows him to hover indefinitely while he's shooting in midair, as well as have unlimited use of his copy ability, so some nice additions to that extra armor that he gets. Going back to X for a second, he finally gains the mighty Shoryuken back again from X2. And the results are, well, sort of underwhelming at best. It's just a standard Shoryuken, no flames on it this time, and it doesn't necessarily one-shot enemies anymore, which is kind of disappointing. You're better off sticking with the standard Nova Strike, because most of the time when you try to use the Shoryuken, you just end up getting hurt anyway. And going to Zero, he is much, much more fun this time around as well. He's got multiple weapons, kind of like they were trying to do with him in X7, but they're much better utilized here. He can use all of his moves from a lot of the past games and some new ones as well, and he can use them with a glaive type weapon, a fan, a giant hammer. So he's got a lot of variety there, and it's really refreshing to see them treat Zero so well and not just as an afterthought as he was in X7. They even gave him brass knuckles where he can use his own Shoryuken and Hurricane Kick from Street Fighter, so go ahead, take it up a notch, Zero, hell yeah. I think they even did a much better job with Axel, as I said before. They gave him multiple weapons that he can use, and they're actually useful this time. He doesn't have the auto-aim anymore, so it's more challenging to play as him, but yet still fun. He's got tons of different variety to the gameplay. He can shoot grenade launchers, homing missiles, Gatling guns, all these different kinds of things that actually differentiate him from Mega Man X, so it was nice to see that as well. They even let you pick from 3 different navigators to help you out in the levels, help you find secrets and items. As you see here, they fixed the intro boss screens so they look a lot more badass than they did before, even though the names are still pretty ridiculous. So you may be thinking to yourself now, they fixed a lot of stuff here. It looks great. Looks like old school Mega Man X. The voice acting's much improved. They really went back and corrected a lot of stuff that Mega Man X7 did wrong, so what could be the problem? Well, even though it's not as bad as X7, there's still a lot that's not very good about this game. And again, it has to do with the terrible level designs. Let me tell you, these guys love spikes. They're everywhere. Everywhere.
No! 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 Ah! Ah!
All the spikes are bad enough, but the rider stages are definitely the worst part of this game and will make you hate every second that you're playing them. And on top of that, there isn't just one rider stage, there's 2 of them. So not only is the one you're seeing here absolutely terrible because half the time you can't even see the gaps that are coming up to you and you fall in the pit and die instantly and you have to restart huge sections of the level over again. This isn't even part of the level. This is the entire thing. So once you get done, you go right to the boss fight. So if you don't like this level, tough shit, because you're going to be playing it until you finish it. And that's it. You might think this stage is the worst this game has to offer, but you haven't seen anything yet. The one I'm about to show you is without a shadow of a doubt the worst Mega Man X level ever created in the history of the Mega Man X and the Mega Man series. So brace yourself for Gigabolt Man of War. Welcome to Mega Man Hell.
Gigabolt Man of War.
The whole object of the stage is to take out Gigabolt Man of War in a car chase-like sequence where you're shooting him constantly. There's things jumping in your way all the time, signs, cars, everything you could possibly imagine to slow you down. Getting each speed boost sphere that you're seeing me pass by is absolutely imperative. If you don't do it, you are screwed. You will never catch him, and you'll randomly die after a predetermined set of time that you can't even see. You just die and it's over, and you have to start all over again and try to get him from the beginning. Oh, come on, man, I almost have him. Don't make me do this level over again. Come on. Oh, no. Oh. My best advice for this level, you have to get him within the first couple of minutes when he's close. If you don't, you'll spend the entire rest of the level trying to get those stupid speed boosts, chasing him, shooting him, and you might barely get him at the end if you really get every speed boost. But if you can't get him in those first couple of minutes, good luck. And as an extra special added bonus, you get to hear his annoying voice the whole time you're chasing him while he's crapping out bombs trying to kill you. Now I know I've spent most of these videos talking about why we love Mega Man X, that's the whole purpose of this, but I cannot let this slide. Stuff like this just drives me insane. There are some levels that have great ideas that add innovation to the series that freshen things up, like Bamboo Pandemonium. You get a cool ride armor, you get to try to take through the stage, you beat the crap out of enemies, It's really fun. Gravity Antillion stage, you have to alter gravity, figure out ways how to get through the level, change blocks around, try to destroy your enemies that way, try not to get yourself killed. That was a really fun level. Dark Mantis's level was like a cool little homage to Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid in a way, with the spotlights and trying to avoid enemies and being stealthy, adding a little different spin onto a typical Mega Man X level. And even Earthrock Trilobite stage, where you're getting chased by a giant mechanoid, you beat him up a little bit and then you have to chase him back through the level, adds a lot of fun, different takes onto the typical Mega Man X levels as well. And then you get crap like this, like in Burned Rooster's level, where you have to fall down these platforms until you get to the bottom of the stage. The developers thought this was so fun that they would make it into a bonus intermission level in addition to having to go through it twice on Burned Rooster's level alone. Then later on, as you're working your way through a boiler system, half the level becomes spikes with just a few enemies sprinkled throughout the rest of it. And that's kind of the confusing thing about Mega Man X8. And don't get me wrong, I do like the game overall, I don't want to dump on it too much, but they just make some really confusing choices in these levels that, after they give you all these abilities and fun ways to defeat your enemies, Zero's weapons are fun to use, Axel's new weapons and the way he's differentiated from X, and X himself with his neutral armor and how you can alter things, it all adds up to what should be a fun experience, but the design of the levels, at least enough of the levels to be a problem, or enough parts in each level to be a problem, just counteract everything that they've done with the characters. Other strange decisions too, like giving you retry chips that you have to purchase instead of the traditional live system to work your way through the levels if you die. To me, just that decision alone detracts a lot from things too, because you're spending money on having to buy more lives rather than spending it on upgrading your character. Even in Mega Man X7, if you died at the boss, they would let you restart and try the boss as many times as you wanted to, as long as you made it that far. The checkpoint started right before the boss battle. So I think that Mega Man X8 definitely had a lot of potential that was squandered because of some of this stuff. And like I said, I still do like the game overall. I think it has enough good things going for it that you can overlook some of this stuff, but I also think as fans that we should demand more from the Mega Man X series, because we know that Capcom is capable of making great Mega Man X games. They've done it in the past. Granted, it was a long time ago, but that doesn't mean that I still don't think that they're capable of doing it. I think they just need to go back to what made Mega Man X special to begin with, like we talked about, and just expand on that type of gameplay rather than trying to change so much and add so many gimmicks to the levels that it really takes away from what drew us to the franchise to begin with. After finally getting through Sigma's spike-filled palace, you find out that Sigma was behind the whole Jacob project, the building of it, the building of the new generation Reploids and their copy abilities, everything. He basically wanted to create a whole new world for himself after destroying all life as humanity and the Reploids knew it back on Earth. Man, seems like Sigma's seen better days though. Guess he's taken one too many beatings. Anyway, after beating Sigma, you find out in a surprise twist that Sigma is actually not the one in control this time. Lumine reappears and says that he has actually been the one in control this entire time, and that he allowed Sigma to be his pawn to accomplish his goals. So this looks to finally be the end of Sigma and the start of a new generation of villain Reploid. Lumine informing the heroes that the new generation Reploids have the ability to turn Maverick at will, and that he was the true mastermind behind the Jacob project. After revealing this information, the true final battle of the game finally begins. Before the first phase of the boss battle with Lumine, he reveals important information. That the chips that all the new generation Reploids use were based on the data from old model Reploids, including Sigma, meaning that Sigma hasn't actually been a Maverick this entire time. He chose to rebel of his own free will. Now this part of the story honestly confuses me because it completely flips on its head everything that we've known about Mega Man X up to this point, and Zero for that matter, and a bunch of other Maverick robot masters, because if this data is based on the chips of hundreds of other Reploids, how many of those Maverick bosses actually rebelled versus turning Maverick? I'm not really sure what that means for Zero. Maybe I need to replay the Mega Man Zero games so I can remember the story, because I pretty much don't remember, and I will be doing that for future videos. But leave a comment down below if you can explain to me how this is all playing out and why it plays out this way if you know. I'd appreciate it. And also let me know what you guys think about Mega Man X7 and 8. Do you agree with what I said, or do you have a different opinion? Let me know down below. After defeating Lumine, his parting words send chills down the hero's spine, telling them that they have no idea what's coming, and they can't stop it. Axel, while walking up to ensure that Lumine was defeated, gets attacked by tendrils coming out of his chest, destroying the crystal on Axel's head. X then finishes Lumine off once and for all with a final X-Buster shot. While riding the elevator back down to Earth, X becomes concerned about Lumine's words, and Zero tries to comfort X, telling him that simply becoming like Sigma isn't evolution, and that no matter what, they have to fight not only Mavericks, but their own destiny of becoming useless and outdated, as these new Reploids continue to evolve. As X8 wraps up, the story tells you that after Lumine goes Maverick, it was decided that all new generation Reploids with copy abilities would no longer be produced, and that copy chips would no longer be produced as well. However, as time passed, the development of space exploration and development in full swing, the new generation Reploids production once again resumed. People just don't learn. You finally see a quote by Dr. Light reminding you of the original reason that he created X, and that he wanted robots and humans to be able to live in harmony. The final scene then shows you an unknown purple crystal that Lumine planted in Axel's head. However, in between X7 and 8, the series decided to explore a different genre altogether. How successful was it? And what happened to X and Zero after the Mega Man X series? We'll explore all that in the final part of Episode 3.